Well, happy Saturday, folks. The real Captain Kirk here. We're live from One Bedlam Plaza here on the 6th of September. It's kind of a summery day. Had a cool week, summery weekend here, and then a big cold front's coming through right now. So it won't last. Another cool week coming up for us here in the east. I'll be speaking down south in Orlando here around the 22nd in the afternoon at the Women in Agribusiness Conference, expecting 1,000 to 2,000 folks there. So farmers, the big ag tech companies. So again, if you want to attend this conference, still time to head on south. Looking at drought, one thing we'll talk about here is, again, we have some good news, bad news for farmers. Again, obviously corn prices are near record lows here, under $4. So good growing conditions down under in South America. Unfortunately, won't help much as the next few 4, 5, 6 months. And then we do have some late frost and freezes in the spring of 2026, and maybe the driest in 3 years across the Corn Belt. So some hope as we get into maybe late spring next year, but again, not a ton. Again, it doesn't look fantastic for a big price move here with U.S. corn. But looking at dry to drought, we did have an uptick here. Right now, 58% of the country's in dry to drought phases versus 65% last year. But the West is definitely expanded. But again, not much drought there in the Corn Belt except for maybe a far eastern Corn Belt. And not a lot of folks care. It's all about the three I's, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana. And they had a pretty good crop season here. Obviously, we're taking record-shattering yields. Down under, again, it's winter is ending here. Again, they got a couple more weeks of winter, just so we have a couple more weeks of summer. But thought we'd look at the flu season here because it's kind of a bellwether of our season ahead here. They had a very warmish start, June, July. Again, that's the start of their winter down under, and it was warm. You can see those charts here, the bar chart left. So a lot of warm weeks, and flu was very slow to start. May, June, down 12, down 21, down 14% versus a year ago. And then it got cold here in August. So the tail end of their winter, quite a bit colder year on year, and they had their peak actually here just here about a week or two ago. So again, that's kind of maybe a little bit what we're expecting here in the U.S. This right now, again, the flu season is still the least in 5 years. Again, slow start, so it doesn't mean much this early in the season here. But we do have a cooler fall in the forecast. But so last year was a very late peak. 2023 was early. It was Christmas time. That's a very early peak. Last year was February 2024, again, kind of a late peak. This year, we're thinking it's going to be a little bit quicker uptick with the cooler conditions, and we look at that here. This is the fall outlook here for us. So cooler, wetter is the theme, so coolest in 3 years, wettest in 5. This would suggest that we're going to have a little more activity, but again, a lot of that starts in the southeast, and again, it's similar to last year's pretty warm conditions. So again, some uptick, but we do think it's going to be a similar peak, more late winter, early spring here in the U.S. with a Type B type season, which is unusual because we've had 2 Type A's. So it'll be a little different strain this year, like Australia. Look at wildfires here to date. Again, the numbers are up. Again, about 47,000 plus wildfires, 12% above average, most in 3 years, 35% more than a year ago. Acres burned is actually below average. So we're getting a lot of fires, but they're not big ones just yet. So we'll see. It's still a couple months here of risk. Also risk a couple months of the hurricane season here. We're at day 97, so we're nearing what is historically the peak. But again, don't get a little sleep. Just lots of activity here potentially. Again, the MJO cycles, the convective pulse cycle is getting more favorable here. We'll see. There is a tropical wave moving through the Caribbean here, and we'll have to watch it. Looking at all the stats here today, so this just shows us the number of storms. Everything in the Atlantic right now is actually trending just a little bit below average as of today. But again, this could uptick here pretty quickly here in the next week or two. Weather Service had been really watching a big system coming across the Atlantic here, going through the Windward Islands here in a few days, and then toward the Gulf in Florida. We'll see again, but backed off again a little bit here with the latest runs. Looking at Kiko is again a major hurricane actually, going to go north of Hawaii. Again, weakens rapidly with the colder winds and the trade winds and the wind shear, whatnot. So it'll go well north of the Hawaiian Islands. Very minimal impact. Again, you got to be in that right front quadrant of the storm to have the major impacts. So it's on the south side. Probably not a huge deal for Hawaii. Looking at the severe weather to date here, again, kind of flatlining here, typical as this time of year. But so tornadoes down 10% versus a year ago, still well above average. Hail down 3%, and wind cases now still 3% above last year's level. And again, we got a cold front sweeping off the East Coast here tonight, Saturday. So it'll be ending that threat, and then not much. Again, just very isolated stuff here in the week ahead. Won't be talking about hot 90-degree days very longer. We'll be talking cold and snow indexes here, but right now we'll wrap these up. But year to date, hot 90-degree days nationally are down 7%. Yes, it had a moment of heat, but it was still only 7th most of the past 40 years, so definitely not record-shattering. Northeast actually down 17% versus last year for hot 90-degree days, 12th most in 40 years. So again, by no means record-shattering heat. So looking at the next 2 weeks, again, way down. U.S. down 35%, least in 13 years. Next 2 weeks in the Northeast down 81%, least in 8 years. So well below average on both fronts. Look at last week, World Summer here. This was the Labor Day weekend week, down 2.6 cooler than last year. Coolest in 16 years nationally, so cool. 8th coolest in 40 years, so well below average temperatures. Hot days were down, 90 days down 18%, least in 8 years. Dry, 31% drier than last year. This is actually good trends this time of year to some extent. Retailers like cool and wet to an extent because it gets you and I out off the beach, the lakes, and buying fall, back-to-school type merchandise. Thought we'd talk about that quick here. So our Power 1 degree just quantifies how small changes in weather, every degree of temperature change impacts things like women's apparel, boots, even mouse traps. So we've looked at hundreds of these categories over the years, quantifying it with real point-of-sale data. So I thought we'd look this past week here. North Central was frigid. I mean, they were the coldest in over 40 years. In fact, they had some frost and freezes far north. So this is a huge plunge here, 6 degrees cooler than last year, which was actually kind of cool too. But so 6 degrees cooler times our power of 1 degree for boots is 3%. Every degree cooler, about a 3% bounce in boot sales. So there's about an 18% lift in sales. That's a pretty big move for a shoe category. They don't typically have huge volatility. Apparel up about 30%, and mouse traps, again, they're heading in. As it gets colder, they head into your garage, your shed, your house. So every degree cooler, about a 7% bounce. So 7 times 6, about 42% increase in mouse trap sales there in North Central. This week, that cool weather actually shifts to the east, but warms up in the north central U.S. there. But still nationally, 0.8 cooler than last year, cools in 5. 16th coolest in 40 years, so still below average national temperatures. But again, a lot of that's, again, more focused toward the east and the west coast. Hot 90-degree days, again, down 20%, least in 8 years, and dry, 32% drier than last year, driest in 20 years. See some of that rain across Florida? That's potentially some of this tropical wave and a stalled cold front sitting down there. So we got to watch it. Again, this is the time as something can flare up literally with 2 or 3 days at most notice. So again, just got to keep an eye on the tropics, obviously in the peak of the season here. Already seeing some fall color here, minimal, but some here in eastern PA. But this will start to ramp up quickly with the very dry conditions in New England. Actually, they could go pretty quick here with leaves changing quickly here in the Northeast and even parts of the Rockies. Temperatures, again, 1.9 cooler than last year. 8th warmest in 40 years, so not terribly cool. But again, cooler than last year's really hot conditions. Hot 90-degree days down about 47%, least in 5 years. And again, dry, 3rd driest in 40 years. Again, still that lingering front across the southeast, so that's where tropical activity could flare up. And just aggregating these 2-week trends, general theme will be a warming trend for the western and central U.S., so still lingering cool. Eastern Canada, eastern U.S., cool there in central Europe. A little bit warmer as down under in Australia. Looking at rainfall here, below average really from the Corn Belt all the way east, maybe other than Florida. So good for farmers starting to get out there. Some of the early folks, south central Corn Belt, starting to harvest. So dry, they'll take it. There in Europe, again, dry, Western Europe, wetter in Eastern Europe. So folks, have a great week ahead, and we will talk to you again this time next week.